What's up, guys? You already know it's time for tennis, so this is a review on the VCORE Pro 97, which I've actually extended. So take the specs you see here with a grain of salt because that is like the official Tennis Warehouse post, but my racket's going to be a little bit different. But with that in mind, it's exactly the same racket that you'd be getting from retail, but I have this XTP butt cap on there that extends it about half an inch, or I should say exactly half an inch, not about. And so in that regard, it's going to be different. My swing weight is going to be higher and the overall weight is going to be higher because that butt cap that I installed adds maybe 15 grams of weight or so, but it's all right where your hand is. So it's not really going to affect swing weight that much, not nearly as much as extending it half an inch will. So other than that, this racket is identical to the one that you were going to get. You can check out a review I did of the XTP butt cap that I did earlier. It's a very easy way to extend your racket half an inch, and it's great because, well, there just aren't that many extended length rackets on the market. So you see one that you like the specs of, but darn it, they just don't offer it in 27.5. So I decided to take the plunge, buy one, and just buy one of these rackets despite never having tried it, and extend it and see what I think. And I actually have a lot of good things to say with this racket. It's been my main racket for a while now, ever since I did this extension job, and that's a few weeks or so. Really great racket, lots of control. The power doesn't seem like it's one of those rackets where you trade off power for control too much. It's very balanced. I know the flex said 60, but you know, those flex numbers are a little bit funny because it really only measures flex at one point in the racket. It doesn't necessarily consider the flex that might be present in the hoop of the racket, or maybe the handle of the racket, or whatever the combination is. At all the different, you know, infinite flex points of a racket, it really only concentrates on one. So take those numbers with a grain of salt, but they are all usually measuring at the same point, so they do mean something at the end of the day. But it is 60 flex, very flexible, and I notice it. It's very comfortable, and like I said, it offers a lot of control, and it just feels so good. It's a very solid racket, and I didn't even get the heaviest one. I wanted to get the lightest one because obviously I'm extending it half an inch, so I don't want to have a bunch of weight that makes the racket just unmanageable. That was a nice slice by me in the corner. But this is me hitting with this racket, just barely getting to know it after extending it. So a lot of good things to say. It's so nice on the slice. Yeah, really, what do I not like the racket for in particularly? It's an extremely well-rounded racket, and I think if you have a decent level of power that you can generate yourself, this racket is not going to feel like it doesn't have enough power for you. Sometimes you hit with a racket that has a really low flex point and it just seems to keep bending and bending the harder that you swing, but this one doesn't do that. I think it gets close to being a little bit too flexible. You could argue that, but I personally don't feel that way, and I'm definitely picky about that kind of stuff, and I mess around with rackets all the time from, like, you know, 60 to 70 RA, so I'm pretty familiar with a wide range of flex. So this is going to be on the bottom end of the spectrum of where I want my flex, and something like the Babolat Pure Drive is going to be at the top end, or maybe even slightly beyond what I like. But I'm still getting to know this racket, and I'm still getting to know that Pure Drive that I got. I haven't done a review on that, but I will. And if you don't want to miss it, you know what you got to do. You got to hit that red bell notification, and you got to subscribe. No shame trying to get those subs up. And it's a win-win. The more growth this channel sees, the more incentivized other companies are to help me make content. So, you know, if you want to see me make more content, show me some love. Oh man, so that was kind of a sick drop shot by me, but he was sort of ready for it, and then I just sort of gave him that shot. He slams it down. Oh man, the way that he's at the net, it's almost like a formality. He's just there and he smashes it, and that's it. I meant to pass him. I think I was trying to go diagonally or something, but you know, my backhand side isn't quite as good as the forehand side. I think almost everybody would say that, but yeah, that was a case of me maybe struggling to decide, should I go down the line or should I pass him with some extreme diagonal angle? And I ended up kind of going down the middle. He was just there. That was a funny point to watch. Get him on the overhead, and then I return an overhead with an overhead. It's such a weird point. Such a weird point right there. But I love the touch on this racket. It has great feel, really good feel. And that's something I'm just appreciating more and more the more I hit with this racket, especially on things like slice or on volleys. It's really nice on volleys. I don't go to the net too much, but when I do, it's nice. You can do one of those weird catch it at a strange time drop shots, or, you know, like kind of those half volley drop shots, or just a straight up volley. And this racket feels really nice for that, whether or not you want to go deep and return the volley with a lot of pace, or if you want to kind of take away all the power and make them rush to the net, or, you know, win the point off of a drop shot in some way. The racket's really good for that. So to wrap this video up, I'm actually going to compare this to the VCORE 98 Plus and the EZO 98 Plus, because I know those rackets really well, and I would describe this racket to stand out compared to those two, mostly because it's so much more control oriented. Like, it's way more flexible. Even if the points don't look that dramatic, the racket feels completely different, and it just seems to kind of be much more of a player's type frame, but not in such a way that it has such a, I don't know, like an old school feel. No, this, you can get a lot of topspin with this racket, a lot of control, and if you can generate your own power, I don't think the racket's really going to hold you back. And that's not something I say for every racket that has a flex in the 60s or the low 60s, which this one is at because it's at 60. Sometimes with the E-zone, I feel like the balls just fly. Like, I'll hit the ball and it just flies out, and I'm like, what? Like, how did that even happen? That's ridiculous. So I do feel a little bit disconnected to the power that the E-zone offers sometimes. And the VCORE 98 is kind of a strange one. I'm still figuring that racket out. I made a video about why I'm selling that racket, so you can watch that video to see what my opinions on that racket are, but I actually might keep it for a little bit longer because I might experiment with some weights from a company called VT Advantech, which also makes the leather grips that I use exclusively. And yeah, that's going to be a content idea for a future video, but it's also a chance for me to experiment with the racket a little bit more. So I'll be talking about the VCORE 98 probably in a future video, but yeah, this racket really stands out in the sense that it's much more control oriented, and it doesn't really sacrifice the power too much, whereas the E-zone is kind of on the other end of the spectrum. I wouldn't say it's like a reckless racket, but there's certain shots where I feel like the ball just flies and you're kind of left wondering, how did that happen? I was so gentle. And on a hard forehand, sometimes you just really have to remember to put a lot of topspin on it because the ball has to come back down because the trajectory just wants to fly out of the court sometimes. So when you're doing volleys or you're not putting quite as much spin on the ball as you might on a shot where, I don't know, maybe you didn't forget to or you didn't get lazy or something. Sometimes you're just in a tight spot, you know, and you can't do everything to the ball that you want to, and the ball just flies out. So that's kind of how I feel about the E-zone, but I really like it otherwise. But this racket definitely offers a lot more feel. I feel more connected to the ball. I feel more connected to the power that is going into the ball, and things like slices and volleys I think I like a lot better on this racket. So at the moment, I might actually prefer this racket to the VCORE and the E-zone 98, but we'll see. Time will tell, and it's hard to formulate an opinion on what my racket is going to be because I'm trying a lot of different rackets, and I've been on a journey to find my next racket for a little while, and that's just how it is. And ever since I went extended, it's been hard to find because the market is so limited. And now I keep exploring, and I found that XTP Buttcap, and I've made this 27-inch racket that isn't offered in extended length. I've made it extended length with that product. So the journey continues, and if you want to subscribe and see where the journey goes, I definitely encourage you to do that, because a lot of what I'm talking about will have something to do with extended length rackets and other slightly unorthodox things. But yeah, that is my review for the VCORE Pro 97, and I highly recommend this racket. I think people from many levels of play would enjoy it, and if you want to extend it, you can with that XTP Buttcap that I talked about and I did a video on. So everything I talked about, or any videos that I shouted out, I will leave a link in the description for it. And yeah, I already did my whole subscribe if you like the content spiel, so I'll save you that. But yeah, that's all for now. I'll see you guys in the next one. See you there. Bye.